Hello, I'm here with Kane, a combat engineer who joined the Australian Regular Army at the start of 2006. I really appreciate your time, Kane, and as someone I know both professionally and personally, it is an honour to have you on our first episode.
All right, it's good to be here, and I might say that this is very excited about this project of yours. Sounds like a good thing for the future.
Yeah, it's really going to be awesome to highlight some of the experiences and things going forward, and I'm more than happy and really excited to see you come back even after this one, share some extra stories. And just as a bit of a backstory, I met Kane in 2016 in Darwin. He was posted to 1CER while I was posted at 1CHB. One of the first encounters I had with Kane was requesting some of the explosive detection dog handlers to come down for some medical lessons with my guys regarding the treatment of military canines. Kane gladly agreed and at very short notice organised himself and some of his colleagues to come down, which was very much appreciated and was an incredible day, to say the least. So it obviously shows a testimony to his character. A great guy. He's always willing to put those above himself and assist where he can. To kick it off, I want to ask you a question, Kane. Why did you join the army?
Well, for as long as I can remember, I've always wanted to join the army. Like, there's literally photos of me like 2 or 3 years old with like helmets and guns and stuff like that, and I just remember any military book, movie, or game I would just devour. I also did cadets for 4 years. Unfortunately, I was an Air Force cadet, but I came over to the light and went to the army. You know, my granddad was army as well. He was a career army officer. Did some tours in Vietnam as well, which I was always grew up listening to his stories. Also felt um, I always felt drawn towards the military because I'd also never left Australia until I had, and I wanted to kind of see the world a bit more. And after 16
Mhm.
years in the military, I got to see at least 7 countries with the military and a myriad of more outside the military. So I felt like I made the right choice.
Yeah, awesome. And it leads me into a question there. What was your proudest moment during your service?
Well, there's been many proud moments in the military. Passing out at Kapuka, um, you know, uh, becoming an engineer. Kind of deploying was a big one, but I think the one that stands out the most was actually I only just returned from Afghanistan. I returned in February 10 and had a little bit of a stint in Thailand, and then I got went to Melbourne for Anzac Day. It was meant to be my first Anzac Day after I deployed. First time I got to wear medals because I actually completed my 4 years while I was over in Afghanistan, so I didn't even have my 4 year gong until after I got back.
Mhm.
And just I think a day or two before Anzac Day, Under Hill 60 was released.
Mhm.
And that movie is about Australian engineers during the First World War. And I remember watching it, feeling immensely proud of what the engineers did during that war. And it wasn't during the movie that I actually had this kind of feeling that you know I have now my own little personal slice of the Anzac story that I was a part of, and that literally no one can ever take that away from me. For the rest of my life, I can be proud that any military person can claim their, but it was just something that I kind of went onto the world stage, went out there, put my life and limb out there, for the Afghan people, and I was immensely proud of that, and but also that same day I also realized that how I was always forever changed because I remember getting quite angry about hearing some kids you know kind of whinging about their iPhone's not working, and I just remember picturing about the kids in Afghan and they're kind of suffering. I remember how I was taken aback by how angry I was, and I realized that something was different then.
Yeah, I completely appreciate that. I think it's really awesome to have these stories that yourself and many others can share because I think that something that nothing to take away from the Anzac story or any other diggers past, present, or emerging or anything, but I think that the 21st century digger is something, or 21st century Anzac is something that is not often spoken about, whether it be so close to home and so raw at the moment. I think it's something that certainly needs to be shared and um, educated on because a lot of people aren't sort of realizing exactly what was done and how it was done and why it was done, which is really awesome to share. So now we go forward with that. I'd like to ask you about. I know you did deploy on Operation Slipper, and if you'd like to share with us what it was really like to be in country in for yourself.
Yeah, so Afghan is an interesting place. So once you go there, you definitely feel like you've gone back in time. There's a lot of a mindset of a very simple life. Very rural. A lot of electricity is not there and stuff like that. And in 9 months, I was scorched hot up to 50 degrees. I froze at nearly -10. I've never been so wide awake, or
Mm.
so dog tired in my life. So damn bored, yet the next day shaking with adrenaline,
Hmm.
with the boys laughing so hard and then crying so much when something would, happen.
Yep.
I couldn't wait to get home, counting down the days to get home, but I was pretty damn sad to leave. And I even extended my tour to help out the incoming rotation to help make sure that they understood the lessons we had learned. Um, and the big one is to when you leave Australia and go to a country like Afghanistan, especially as a 22-year-old at the time, you know, was definitely a crowning point for me and how lucky we have it in Australia. Compared to places like that, and how safe we have it. Our worries are quite, not as important as those people would have. Like you've been able to
Hmm.
step out of our house and feel safe. Where they just step out of the house, you never know if they would be coming back again, and the likelihood of them not coming back is quite high. Um, and we went there to help, the people in Afghanistan. Putting all politics aside of all the shit that's going on now, that I know for myself and the soldiers I deployed with, that's what we went to do. We went to help
Hmm.
them, and I
Yep.
definitely feel I can put my hand on my heart to say that we did. Like as much as we could, we built schools, utilities, bridges, and stuff like that for the people, and we protected them. We did.
Yeah.
Um, and but to see that fragile way of life, definitely points, at the human nature of how quickly society can collapse and how quickly people, are willing to kill it and maim, can be quite confronting.
Yeah. Probably appreciate that. And obviously, touching on your deployment there, and be it both at home or abroad, just interested if you'd like to share what you think of might be one of the hardest or most traumatic moments coming to mind when you think back on your military service.
Yeah. So probably the hardest thing as a soldier deployed in a combat zone, definitely for me personally, has to be seeing a mate wounded,
Hmm.
or hurt. Yeah, and as an engineer, something one of the hardest things is if you did miss an IED, or in a sense, which I think probably a lot of the engineers over there did experience that. Being so every single day being out there, like the likelihood. But I never had went off or hurt anyone, but I still miss things that later were
Yep.
found. And it still makes both seeing my friends hurt, and that still makes me sick to the day thinking about it. Like when you go back and stuff. But probably my most traumatic experience would have to be the first time I saw a dead body, which was an enemy combatant.
Hmm.
And my personal experience with that was mainly, being so transfixed on the guy, like a Where's Wally
Yeah.
picture. Like you just staring at it, looking at every single little detail was like revealing something about the guy.
Hmm.
And it's like a car, the car wreck. You just couldn't. And I wasn't the only one. It was everyone was kind of like taken aback by that. Being confronted with death for the first time.
Yeah.
Um, and then, the guy didn't die well either, which definitely added to it. But then then you started to kind of picture who he probably was. Even though like it wasn't me who killed the guy, and he was the enemy. I started to wonder about his life, his family, and what he could have been. In a sense, if whatever this confrontation never happened. And then the worst thing, I transitioned into picturing myself one like tomorrow is it going to be me laying down with the enemy looking at me. But thankfully, you know, we got moved on fairly quickly. We all kind of snapped out of it, and and it all got pushed to the back of my mind and cracked on with the job kind of thing. Which a lot of the training does kick in, and you kind of do like, okay, I got a job to do, kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, but it's still one of those things that on the long nights when you're sitting there, and I think a lot of veterans can relate to this one way or another, that you get those unwelcome visits from the memories, and it kind of hits
Yep.
you again, and you kind of relive it in a sense and go through it in a sense. And the other thing too is like, I think a lot of the combat veterans, either got shot out, blown up, or rocketed at some point. And I had a point where a guy, was pressing a button on a RC IED, a remote control IED, where I was standing next to it, but like,
Mm.
it didn't detonate until I was a bit further away. But it did mess up me a while, thinking that there's someone in this world that literally looked at me personally and said, "Yep, that's the guy I'm going to kill today."
Yeah, that's certainly not an easy to thought to have or to take with you. And as you said there, it's obviously often when it's all dulled down and when it is most quiet that you do reflect on that, which is the hardest to take in when your adrenaline's going and everything like that. And I very much do consider us close friends, Kane. I've had the pleasure of working with you during our service, as well as meeting and socialising with you and your lovely family, including your lovely late partner and your amazing son. And I wanted to ask if you had any closing words for those who, one, that don't understand the 21st century digger, as we've spoken before, or those that might be going through and struggling with things they might be dealing with during their service, etc.
Yeah, well, today's soldier, eh? Being a soldier in today's army is definitely an interesting beast to understand. You know, because definitely today's digger is under a lot more scrutiny than any of his predecessors, and with cameras on phone and the media and social media as well, the likelihood of very young diggers bringing what they say disrepute to the ADF is way too high. Like, you know, I made some plenty dumb decisions when I was 18 years old and first entered the military. I'm just glad Facebook wasn't around to remind me of those days. That's for sure. I always think that the army needs to give this, the soldiers and our commanders, back our aggression, our no nonsense attitude to getting a job done, kind of thing. From what I remember when I first joined the military, but there have been changes to the modern military, way of thinking, like family and welfare issues that have come leaps and bounds, which is great. Like, especially with what happened with my partner passing away, and the support that I got
Hmm.
from the military was fantastic, like absolutely fantastic. Couldn't fault them. But in saying that, I think some of the army's priorities have been, skewed and centered on making the army, what's the right word, like family friendly, you
Yep.
know, and that's kind of not what we're about. We should kind of be feared by people who want to
Hmm.
hurt or do us harm, like, in a sense, and making a a huge deal about, like, personal soldiers tattoos, offensive tattoos, or we're not allowed to have skull and cross, any kind of skull or death motifs or Punisher, you know spray painting on vehicles, or, like, for example, in one of the units, they banned the comic book hero, the Phantom, because he's considered a vigilante and has a skull on his ring.
Yeah.
And and the CU and the NT bumper stickers got banned because they were offensive.
Yeah.
And it's just like that kind of, you know, kind of makes it a bit of a butt of a joke, and people laugh like it, and Marines laugh at it and stuff like that. Um, and and I think we need to go back to being the tip of the spear and not the butt of jokes.
Yeah. Well, especially, I certainly don't. I think it's really you touch on the Marines there because I've worked with them a lot, but I'm sure you have yourself. Whereas we're at two almost spectrums at the end of the day. The United States Marine Corps' motto is kill, kill when they
Yeah.
say anything or agree with it. And ours is, you know, who knows what it is. But I completely can
Yeah,
see
I
that.
think I think our is professionalism. It was
Yeah.
integrity, and
Teamwork.
those good work, teamwork,
Yeah.
and which is good. But I mean, like, in saying that, they need to, in a sense, you know maintain that aggression. Like, they keep talking about warrior mindset, but then when
Yeah.
it boils down to it, it never comes to that. And sorry, I was just go. I was just gonna say, to like a lot of veterans, Afghan veterans, to any kind of veteran really, because I find the mental health crisis that we have in our veteran community does come from a disassociation with the world, in a sense where a lot of people, I find, who haven't experienced a lot of things that our veterans see, you know they what's the old saying, ignorance is bliss. Like, when you haven't seen it, you don't care about it, you don't worry about it, but the veterans do see it and they worry about it. And I think the first thing a lot of veterans need to hear is that you always will have worth in anything in everything you do. Like you'll be worthy to somebody, and that someone will always care about you as long as you reach out and chat to them, mate. Someone will care.
Mm.
And I know recently when Afghanistan fell back to the Taliban, I know a lot of the veteran community were hurting by it, and especially myself too. I had a lot of anxiety and stress about it, and especially with like a lot of people posting, armchair people who had no stake in it at all, going it was all for nothing, and I don't believe that it was all for nothing. Like any day that we went there and protected a village was a one extra day those people felt safe, and so that was worth something. And I think people need to realize that. And after it all kind of died down and a lot of the veteran community were talking to each other, I was glad to see that the main consensus in the community was that we did our best, we gave our all, but the rest was out of our hands. Like,
Yep.
it was out of our control. So what could we do? Um, but for the good I do feel I did, like finding the IEDs and stuff like that and protecting the village from the Taliban, there was always a mixed emotion and I guess a black stain on my mental health. When something did go wrong and ID meant for us did hurt people, you do think certain things like if we weren't here, that bomb would have never have gone off and those people would still be alive. But, I think you just have to realize that, you know, there's just some things out of your control and a lot of things like you try and do the best you can, but you just got to take the good and the bad.
I couldn't agree more. And I just want to wrap up there with obviously a final point where obviously if anyone is struggling and needing any sort of support, there are many hotlines out there, but one being obviously Open Arms and the Safe Zone support being 1-800-142-072, and that's a 24-hour counselling service there. And just want to say thank you, obviously, Kane, for your time. Thank you for your service and sharing your amazing stories and experience with us at Soldiers 5. I'm very keen to get you on again and share some more warriors. And all the best. Look after yourself, and we'll speak soon, no doubt.
All right, mate. It's been a pleasure.